Hello everyone, it is now the 14th of March as of when I started writing the script, now 24th of March, and you know what this means. It's been 8 years of MGTOW for me. 8 years since I found this philosophy, community and way of life, and to mark this occasion I want to make this video, to discuss how things have changed over the past 8 years, both good and bad for this channel and for MGTOW in general. With that being said, let's begin. So, to start off, 2018, 8 years ago, was a very different time. At the time, I had only recently found out about MGTOW content, and it was from channels like Sandman, Angry MGTOW, and MGTOW 101 at the time, back when they were MGTOW. I also watched Liberation Y and I liked the message and agreed with it, and still do to this day. MGTOW, though, in terms of community, was also different then than it is now. The apocalypse, if it was happening, was in its early infancy or didn't happen yet, and there was no filtering, community guideline strikes, terminations or shadow banning, and YouTube in general was a better platform than it is now. At the time, though, you had many more channels and thus content creators, and MGTOW was growing at the time. There was also the MGTOW subreddit, and the MGTOW.com website still existed at the time, and the MGTOW.com website still existed at the time. So I would say that MGTOW was in a good state when I found it in 2018, and it was doing great. The growth MGTOW was experiencing in the latter half of the 2010s was also happening in 2019. In addition to this, what I call the MGTOW first mindset was more common and prevalent within MGTOW. The ideal of achieving complete male independence in all areas of life was the zeitgeist and heart of MGTOW at the time, and was echoed throughout MGTOW channels and spaces far and wide, be it from the average commenter to the most active of content creators. There is still a good chunk of that mindset in 2026, but it was more common back then. But anyways, onwards to how I found it and what my life was like back then in 2018 and before it. Before 2018, I wasn't really aware of the ideas of MGTOW and of the related community and the wider Manosphere as a whole, but at the time I was somewhat aware of politics and of the political situation in the areas of North America and Western Europe. I kind of was aware, though, as around 2016 and 2017 Trump won the 2016 elections and the effects of the European refugee crisis of 2015 was starting to reveal themselves. As a result, I started to watch the channel Paul Joseph Watson, and channels close to the kind of content he made. At the time, the channel seemed convincing and I appeared to agree with most of the views that were shared by him at the time, something which is not the case now, as I agree with basically nothing that he has to say, very little if anything at all, and I haven't watched him since 2023, if not longer. Anyways, the important part of the backstory was one of his videos titled Sexodus, Why Are Young Men Giving Up on Women, which very clearly shared ideas that we would consider MGTOW and MGTOW related, allowing me to see that MGTOW was a possibility and that such a thing did exist. Furthermore, in the comment sections, MGTOW was mentioned directly, which gave me the inspiration to look it up and see what it was about. From that point on, having figured out that MGTOW existed, I watched videos on it from Sandman, Angry MGTOW when he was MGTOW at the time, even MGTOW 101, Liberation Y, Replicant Fish, Vention MGTOW, and I think even Coltane MGTOW, and maybe Sydney MGTOW. With those videos, I learned of things I would have otherwise not known about. I took the time to learn all there is to know about MGTOW from those videos and some key concepts at the time. It is thanks to these videos that I learned that MGTOW was, and still is, the most viable solution to the problems faced by men. Things like divorce court, alimony, child support, wealth redistribution, and even the danger of false accusations via Me Too, and why you need to protect yourself from them. The basic principle of don't get married, don't be in a long-term relationship, and don't cohabitate was created specifically to give you the ability to avoid the situations that would result in you losing resources in a no-fault divorce or being accused of something you did not do. With that, the door of possibilities and freedom has been opened, and in part, the drive to go my own way and do my own thing has increased and is still present even today. When it comes to MGTOW, there are some things of the MGTOW message that resonated with me in particular in 2018 and made me support MGTOW then and be a hardliner in that support, as well as keep up that support today. One of the things that resonated with me the most and aligned strongly with my view of the world was the point MGTOW made that you do not need to go down the path of traditional marriage or relationships and dating to be a successful man and to live a good and productive life, and that being single was a viable path. In short, there was an alternative, and that the mainstream path that was being sold to men was not the only way to live. In regards to that part, something that is lost on some MGTOWs today, sadly I might add, because every MGTOW should know this, but sadly they don't, especially those who believe that you need to like women to be MGTOW and that it's a prerequisite, that for me, the most appealing part of MGTOW and something that resonated very strongly and resonated with me the most was the idea that you didn't have to like women at all, or date them, or get married, which is the downstream of liking them, in certain ways, and that you could live your life the way you want to and do your own thing. The idea that you could be single and live a free and independent life as a single man, and that you didn't need to like women, simp for them, or show deference, is what makes MGTOW unique and what makes MGTOW, in my opinion. Without it, you don't have the core foundation for MGTOW and everything that exists downstream from it. So for me, the initial draw and the most important draw and tenet of MGTOW that convinced me to go down the MGTOW path was the idea that I didn't have to get married, I didn't have to be in a relationship, I didn't have to be with anyone, and I could just live freely on my own terms. And that I didn't have to like anyone and could just live freely on my own terms. Anyways, after discovering MGTOW and all there is to know about it from other content creators, and having had ambitions of being a YouTuber from even before the MGTOW days, I decided to make my own contribution to the MGTOW space in my own style, and so the channel Igor MGTOW and Video Games was born. The goal of this channel at the time was to create MGTOW content while also being focused on gaming, as I'm a gamer and play video games, and have liked playing video games and thus looked up to gaming channels, especially those involved in Minecraft, and to this day I still watch some channels from those spaces. Shout out to CWAT, Joofy Luby, Evbo, and the like. Being 11 years old at the time, I also thought it would be wise to have a channel to explain my perspective on things related to MGTOW and the wider world around me. As many MGTOWs have stated before, they wish they learned of MGTOW at a younger age, and here I was, having the same opportunity they wish they had, so I wanted to use it and be the beacon of light for my fellow MGTOWs. In the early days, the channel was modest and the content was extremely basic, unrefined, but it was authentic. It was a MGTOW, and it was an honest depiction of MGTOW and its values from my perspective at the time, and at the time, that is all that mattered. From its humble origins, the channel grew slowly at first, but then it got noticed by others in the MGTOW community, and then growth accelerated. Everyone from Hammerhand to Sandman and others noticed my channel, and even back in 2019, I did live streams with others, and even hosted some on my own channel. 2019 was also the year where the biggest amount of growth happened with my channel, reaching almost 1,000 subs in 2019 and actually reaching it in 2020. I made a great many videos on a wide range of topics, such as MGTOW gaming, future technologies related to MGTOW such as the artificial womb, to whether or not the dating itself is good. And also, when dealing with anti-MGTOW creators, roasting them who did somewhat deserve it, even if said roasting itself is unhelpful and unsophisticated way of responding. It is thanks to my efforts that my channel grew and MGTOW grew with it. Overall, the period of 2018 to 2019 was a good time for the channel, and while I did make some mistakes, I did well for the most part. There is something to note. To explain the backstory of the roasts, at the time I watched Undead Chronic, who was an extremely popular figure in the Manosphere, at least on YouTube, and still widely respected, and thus for some reason I wanted to emulate his unique style of roasting. This is one area where I have changed, as I see roasting now as unsophisticated, unrefined, and uncivilized. And given that I revere the civilized and abhor the uncivilized and unrefined, I don't wish to emulate that type of roast anymore, but rather debate people in a civilized debate where the battles of ideas are what matters. This is why I no longer emulate that model of response. Anyways, moving forward in time to 2020 through 2023. Starting in 2020, COVID happened and the apocalypse was moving in full effect. This resulted in several changes both in my channel and the rest of the MGTOW community. For one, MGTOW content was far less recommended and visible, affecting growth in general, and secondly, YouTube started taking action against MGTOW channels, resulting in some of them being banned or disappearing. In terms of the events of that time, there was also the COVID pandemic, which resulted in there being less personal freedom overall, which affected all of us, me included. It was at this time that we placed heavy emphasis on alternate platforms, MGTOW.TV in particular, as a safe space we can make MGTOW content on. Around 2021, when I had like 2 strikes back to back, if I remember, content about COVID that I made, I had decided to leave for MGTOW.TV and stay there until 2023. Well, stayed there permanently, but I was voted to return to YouTube. In retrospect, I'm lucky to have never had my channel terminated, when others have had at least 5 to 10 channels terminated, with Hammerhand having his channel taken down, in many respects for illegitimate reasons, resulting in them being restored in 2026, and the restoration of these channels is the one good thing that came out of the Trump presidency, in a sea of absolute negatives. So, from 2021 to 2023, I only made content on MGTOW.TV and Odyssey.com, so that was an interesting experience. Being a content creator on MGTOW.TV and Odyssey.com only allowed me to not have to worry about the issues of YouTube and its rules, and gave me a sandbox in which I can experiment and grow, as well as still have my voice heard without being attacked. I believe that it is because of the fact that MGTOW.TV was a free platform, coupled with the fact that Twitter, at least in the first stages, before Elon Musk turned his back on free speech by banning the word cisgender, falsely labeling it a slur when it's not, that I was able to keep doing what I do best, and thus in the end, return to YouTube and revitalize the entire channel again. There are viewers on YouTube who stayed loyal, who stayed subscribed, despite me being gone and never promising to return, and on MGTOW.TV. And to them I want to say, thank you for sticking with me. With the return of me and my channel on YouTube in 2023, came a new era of revitalization and progress. I took a channel at around the 970 subscriber range and built it back up, even surpassing the previous all-time high of 1,046 subscribers in April 2020, now reaching 1,138 subscribers. With the new era from 2023 to 2026, I also managed to progressively start improving the content I made, so it's actually polished, professional and polished, and looks good, and is something I can be proud of, rather than just crude, basic, or unrefined. I started this by first making thumbnails for my videos, and as a result of having a proper thumbnail style, have a proper thumbnail style instead of just letting YouTube or other media sharing sites pick one from the video. I started moving towards scripted content and away from the previous unscripted content I once used to do. It is this move in particular that made my content better and improved it, but merely doing that wasn't enough. Starting in late 2025 to the present day, I also made another series of improvements. I finally got rid of the Windows desktop showing up in the video, so it's no longer in the background, and managed to get the images to render directly to the screen, which made the videos I made look that much more professional. And with the Minecraft server tour video, I incorporated music into my videos for the first time, as well as pre-recorded video game footage. This is much different from the older videos I used to do, even when they include gaming, as it allows me to try a new style and see what works and what doesn't work. Now, on to how MGTOW itself has changed. 2019 and the like was the last year of the MGTOW golden age in my viewpoint, as we had an unprecedented expansion and we still had the MGTOW.com website and the r/MGTOW subreddit, and the content in terms of the Manosphere was authentic and real, not influenced by people like Andrew Tate, Myron Gaines, Sneeko, or Fresh and Fit and the like, but by us MGTOWs, for us MGTOWs, and for the average man who wishes to go their own way and do their own thing. We assumed this era of expansion would last, especially on YouTube. But alas, it was not meant to be. This is where we come to 2020 and 2021. 2020 and 2021 were what I call the dark ages of MGTOW, as because of the effects of COVID and of the speech restrictions on YouTube, MGTOW content stopped being recommended and channels were getting terminated. Such restrictions also extended to other platforms, and it was around this time that the subreddit of r/MGTOW and any MGTOW related subreddit got shut down, in addition to the MGTOW.com website disappearing. To be fair, seeing channels being terminated repeatedly, and them being shadow banned and filtered, it did kind of feel somewhat hopeless, like MGTOW would never be able to rise again, but now it is rising like a phoenix, ready to reclaim its role and its rightful place in the world. However, some of the bad things from the Dark Ages have persisted into this new era of regrowth and recovery, including partial YouTube censorship, but more importantly, the seeping of political views which were originally outside of MGTOW, unrelated to MGTOW, into MGTOW itself and thus changing it. And this is most common with what I and the others call tradconism, as well as other rightist or right-leaning political positions, which in my opinion were not there before. This can be obvious when you look at other content creators and see their opinion on things like immigration as well as remigration, but also particularly obvious if you look at what their stance on LGBTQ+ rights and issues are and where they come from. This change is something I have noticed at least since 2023 onwards, and I don't think this change is positive at all. I believe in the original vision of MGTOW and the original vision of what I call the MGTOW first mindset, and I completely and categorically reject remigration of any kind, any attempt to curtail legal immigration, and any attempt to curtail migration not related to preventing entry of illegal immigrants, and I completely disagree with the anti-trans lobby on any of the positions it is trying to promote online, and proudly state my opposition to them. This does bring us back to around 2024 to 2026, as it is around that time in 2024 where this becomes more noticeable, and in particular there was an attempt by others to get rid of me from this community. There were attempts by others to get rid of me from this community and from the MGTOW philosophy as a whole, which by the way have all failed. The reason for these attempts were because I did not align ideologically with those who share a more tradcon-leaning position, in particular because I refused to go along with several anti-trans or anti-LGBTQ+ positions in general, which I saw all of them as illegitimate, and refused to accept remigration, and refused to accept being forced to hold any kind of political position outside of MGTOW that they held. This caused them to be angry and to lie about me, including calling me all kinds of things from a Jew to a Fed to a pedo, but in the end it didn't matter, as I kept my position. For the record, the attempts were all made by the same guy, but at first SE, when he was still alive, remedied it, and then all of his other attempts all fell apart on their own. For veterans of the channel, you may know who this guy is, but I refuse to say his name to avoid giving him any publicity and attention, so there is that. The times I had to deal with this nonsense were October 2024, June-July 2025, and August-September 2025 respectively. But I got through it, and I'm glad I persisted instead of just leaving MGTOW and heading into the wilderness. While, as evidenced before, there were ups and downs, and when those downs were considerably troublesome, it did indeed turn out that staying MGTOW and staying in MGTOW, the community, was ultimately the right choice, and one that is more rewarding than any other choice I could have made. The future of MGTOW is built by those who stay MGTOW and stay involved in it, and I'm going to say I prefer staying over retiring because I want to build the future and be part of that effort. But anyways, I want to mention what I have learned over these past 8 years, and how I think about MGTOW today versus how I thought about it back when I started, as well as mention things I wish I would have been able to do differently with the knowledge I have now. So firstly, when it comes to this, do I regret being a MGTOW, a man going his own way, and promoting it? No, because there is nothing to regret in terms of promoting a philosophy that encourages men to think for themselves and decide if being single is the right way or the wrong way to live your life. Now, are there things I wish I could have done better? Yes. With hindsight, one of the things I wish I could have done better was introduce proper video editing and the 2026 content creation style far earlier, as it would have made the channel bigger and stronger and more relevant. I should have researched into software like DaVinci Resolve earlier, as it would have made the content far better at the time than it was without it. Additionally, in my opinion, I should have had the hardline stance I had towards things like tradconism far earlier than I did, and I should have expressed my stance without fear. The reason I was in the amount of trouble I was in was that I did not have a hardline stance earlier, did not enforce such a hardline stance earlier, and was too afraid to express my opinions and too worried about what others would think and if they would cause problems. Furthermore, another thing I wish I could have done better is conflict resolution with others. Now, this goes back to 2023, but I will explain it very briefly. Basically, I was in a Discord server existing, doing my own thing. But then, someone who is or was anti-MGTOW decided to give me shit over being MGTOW and attack me, and I didn't take too kindly to it, but then a month later, it happened again, and I really didn't take too kindly to it, and that is an understatement. But unfortunately, instead of behaving like a normal person and just moving on, I decided to first undertake a years-long ruinous revenge campaign that ultimately went nowhere and was ruinous. And then months after, I said some stuff that I don't think I can say on YouTube without the feds going after me, which I regret saying, so I apologize for that. But conflict resolution and being able to move on from things is something I wish I was better at, as currently I have the problem of being far too vengeful and far too vindictive when it comes to dealing with enemies or former enemies, which is something I need to fix. Also, now that I think about it, if you remember my content in 2020, I regret insisting that Trump won the election when Biden did, because stating Trump won simply wasn't true then and isn't true now. And that is evidenced by the fact that Biden managed to serve out an entire 4-year term. And after that, Trump won again. A simple question to understand that disproves the entire rigged election narrative, the big lie, is if they rigged the 2020 election, why did the same party forget to rig the 2024 election? It is with that question that most come to the conclusion that it wasn't rigged, and I would say the same with thinking the lockdowns would last forever when the lockdowns, restrictions, and mask mandates did not, in fact, last forever. Ultimately, when it comes to my thoughts about MGTOW itself, and how far I've come, I would like to think that I'm a better MGTOW now and a better person now than I was before in 2018, and that I have improved. Some of the lessons that I have learned is that I should always do what is right for myself, what is right for MGTOW, and focus on that before anything else, be it politicians, political parties, social movements, and the like. That is what the MGTOW first mindset is all about. I have learned how to be a good MGTOW while also avoiding falling for the traps of conservatism and tradconism, avoiding falling for the trap of listening to sound bites taken out of context, and I was able to accurately portray what MGTOW was trying to teach with the concept of female nature and the idea of no-fault divorce as it works for men, without hating women or any other groups of people for what they were born as. And unlike some others in MGTOW, I'm able and I'm glad to have always stood steadfast in defending the MGTOW first mindset, despite others opposing me on that. I'm also glad that I was able and am still able to think for myself, think critically, and come to my own conclusions, which is something MGTOW has taught me to do and is still an important skill in my day-to-day life. All in all, being a MGTOW and following the philosophy itself was worth it, because despite some of the troubles within the associated community, the philosophy and its foundations are still rock solid as they were back then, and will lead to success in life, even if you were to depart from the MGTOW community. For example, when I started, and this is just an example in terms of tech stuff, I had the Celeron system, but now I have a capable Core i5 quad-core system, a MacBook Pro from 2015, an iPhone SE 3rd Gen and Mac Mini 2018. And this is just tech-related stuff. By many metrics, life is good, quality of life is good, and being MGTOW has led to greater material wealth, if that is what you seek out. So I hope that MGTOW will once more have a golden age, the same way it did in 2018 and 2019, and for me, I plan to continue this channel and this content. I hope that we win, that the MGTOW first mindset is the predominant mindset in MGTOW again, instead of something else, and thus, here's to another 8 fulfilling years of being a MGTOW man. We can all be happy and glad we discovered this philosophy, and I hope that it continues on, long into the future with it, and everything we built, respected and well liked in the world. With that being said, this has been Igor, MGTOW, and video games. Like and subscribe and click the bell notifications on YouTube if you enjoyed the video, and follow me on odyssey.com, MGTOW.tv, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Rumble, and join my Discord server, and bye bye. Thanks for watching.